also, those that see auras may actually be doing a shift where their body is shifting inputs that come not through the eyes, but through other senses, and simply converting the signal into a visual signal that's projected to the visual area of the brain, so that's perceived as seeing that. So there are other experiments to go into that phenomenon, but some people do see something and they perceive it as color. But when you get past the visible area, then you really can't talk about them in the same way as color, except to say that there are then octaves. Just like on the piano, if I play the note C, middle C, 262 hertz is the present tuning on the piano. Well, originally it was 256, but it's been shifted around here to make the well-tempered instrument here, so we can play harmony. But if I have middle C and I double that, then it's also C. It's just like the diagram I had. It's vibrating at twice the frequency, but it has the same characteristic because it's a multiple of that first one. And so we might be able to use that same principle that even at these very high rates of where the light is at a very fast frequencies, when we get to the ultraviolet range, we would have a frequency that is ultraviolet red. And another one that's the ultraviolet corresponding to the green zone of the spectrum that's up there. But that's my theory. We need to test it out a little bit more to see if we can directly measure it with ultraviolet. But that's where I believe these aura fields that come out there are in that ultraviolet range of frequency that are not visible. There also are infrared emanations that come out, which are measured with thermographic means, infrared guns. And there's technology that's been done to measure those, pick up energy fluctuations in fields that also give a lot of information. But back to this little process of this experiment, where I then would take and shine the different colors of light through, and maybe we find we got red that responded in that first zone. But now another person found a different color, found blue for them in that first zone. But there always was this first zone out here that would go from about 2 to 4 inches for most people. Somebody that's been doing exercise like Qigong, which is a Chinese process of increasing energy, breathing and meditative types of procedures. But with that, this thing can increase, go out much farther. And so it can fluctuate depending on the state of energy of the person. But there's then another zone around the person that will be found to respond to another color. And that's distinct from this first one. And then there would be a third, and that would go out maybe another 10 to 15 inches past the border of the first one. So it was a wider expanse. Then there was a third zone around that would be, and I found the first people I was testing was either green or magenta, or these two colors, which is an interesting finding. I was able to decipher what that meant after some time.
Does the color make a difference? What's happening?
The color will reflect the personality pattern and state of mind of the person.
Such as white?
White is very uncommon to find that in these areas. It's simultaneous switching back and forth very quickly between two of the opposite colors, either green and magenta or orange and indigo as the colors. That it's like if you spin a color wheel, it looks white. You have all the colors in there as it spins around because they all mix and blend together. But typically there'll be one color or another that's in that field. Now now this third field would go out about 24 to 30 inches past the second field. Then there was a fourth field that went out about another 4 to 5 feet. Not as much again as the first three all added together. And one interesting thing I found with that was that we can divide the colors into warm colors and cool colors. With the reds, oranges, yellows, those being warm colors, and you look in fire, you see warm. You look in deep water, you see the cool colors, the greens, the turquoise types of green, blues, indigo, violet, those colors are the cool colors. And I found that the color in the second zone was one of the cool colors, then the color in the fourth zone was always going to be warm, or vice versa. That's applied to thousands of these tests as a consistent factor. And then in the last zone, there was a fifth zone that could be measured that way that was about 8 to 12 inches past the edge of the fourth. And so the same thing, if the first zone was a warm color, this one was always going to be a cool color, or vice versa. And so that was a way then of picking up these color responsive zones of the force field. You would take the light, shine it perpendicularly, and move it toward where you would intersect, and you could tell where the edge of this thing was. And find these edges. So that was and then the pulse would change. Be monitoring the pulse until it would change. Found with EAB testing, we'd get the same response. The needle would change when the color would come on through, and we would get an improved reading.
Did you check the pulse of electronic device? Do you have any, or was it just tactile?
It was tactile. There is a fellow, Joe Nabich, who's put a number of years of work and supposedly $3 million into developing a device to measure that pulse objectively with an oscilloscope and special sensors that went onto there, and was able, under sensitive conditions, to pick up the difference. But it was it's not a change in the frequency of the pulse rate. It's a change in the shape of the wave of the pulse, slightly, which was not a simple, easy thing to measure in that way. But it's a procedure that could be repeated and could be done other ways. We're working to eventually develop an instrument that will pick up a response just with electrodes or sensors that are attached to the body, and then do an automatic test that will get that information. But I've converted that to other ways of gathering the information, assessing from that, also just simply by the electroacupuncture type testing. With color, we're putting color into liquid filters carried in the homeopathic form.
What meridian do you use?
The meridian I use to test that is the nerve vessel on the hand, gallbladder on the foot. If you were to do that, but I usually stay on the hand and use the gallbladder, or you use the nerve system. I want to cover a few more of these concepts. One of those that we just talked about then is the field and energy field around the body. And this is a description, a little idea here of lines of force of an electromagnetic field, where you have two different polarities, a positive and a negative. Then you'll have an attraction and certain lines of force that will exist.
Question, Doug.
Yes.
If you wanted to use electrical energy and apply your anode and cathode to the body, you want to electrify the body only to find out its response, to find out if you can stimulate any interference fields.
Yes.
Where would you apply the electrodes?
Where would you apply electrodes for an electrical change?
Stimulation, electrical stimulation with the idea of finding out where interference fields would show up.
Okay, if you would.
Now, in other words, you ask the patient what kind of sensations they're getting.
Yeah.
And where. In other words, if there's an interference field, there should be a disturbance there. They should feel something.
Well, you can apply. So what they may feel and sense, maybe below a threshold where you're able to observe it too well, but you could apply a field just to hand-to-hand electrodes, to foot electrodes. You could put them up on the head. In fact, in the SEG, that's where there are pads that are applied just to give a general body kind of a stimulus. Now you can, in certain cases, when you apply it on a specific acupuncture point, you'll get a response. And even just pressing on a point, see, some people that are sensitive are going to elicit something because they're very close to their threshold of responding. I've had people with asthma, and when I measure the bronchial plexus point on their lung meridian, they'll start to develop the asthma symptoms. And another person with a very disturbed autonomic nervous system, when I went in and was measuring the specific autonomic point, they went into a whole shaking and chill and sweaty palms and a sudden kind of sympathetic reaction to this thing, just like sudden adrenal release here that went on just by going in to measure, but just like you push at a certain spot and they say ouch. So when we put a general kind of a stimulus on through, you may get a general response. If you would, that's where a machine that we could put in there very, very specific frequencies would be one way of eliciting certain kind of response. Of course, when we do that with the EAB type testing, we put a remedy in there. We're putting in our ideas that there's an electromagnetic field that contains frequencies and subharmonics that the body responds to. And some people, in most cases, it's a subtle autonomic change that happens, and we measure by skin resistance or other means. There's a few people that you run into that are so sensitive that once you put in the remedy, it creates symptoms. I had one woman just a while ago. She's very sensitive, been working with the chemical desensitizing and phenolic a lot. And when we were testing serotonin, a neurotransmitter, and this was testing not even with the ampule, but using the computer-generated signal on her nervous system or allergy point. When we got to serotonin, I think it was a 12x, suddenly she went into a reaction. And she couldn't swallow, made a throat constriction, and she was kind of gasping and in distress. I went up there and went up to higher dilutions, I think it was 30 or up to 200, and that turned the thing off. And so she was game to experiment, so we went back down and I put in 12x serotonin, and suddenly, she couldn't swallow and she was distressed, but went up there and then simply put in through the higher potency, and then that relieved the whole thing. I did it about 6 times, just like a light switch, turning the symptoms on and off, just with the EAB type testing. Of course, that when you do injections and provocative type of things on the tongue, you create symptoms and then turn them off. People with clinical pathology are working with that, looking at the chemical side of things. But what's more, the rapid response that goes on is quicker than a chemical change would induce. And so there's some type of an energetic shift that can happen quickly. You just know when you walk up to that door at the grocery store, it responds right away because before you get there, it's sensing a field change. But these are fields. There's another way of defining different types of fields. Okay, some fields will have the dimension of direction, where they're moving somewhere. And this is represented by a vector, which is a little arrow that's moving in a certain way. This is a scalar field that does not, does not have any direction to it. Okay, it only has magnitude, it only has this one dimension, so it's defined by different size of the dot. And so we get into looking at different characteristics that can describe something. The scalar field is not going anywhere, but in here the vector field is moving somewhere.
Okay, if you step to the side just slightly.
Sure. Now, another concept here is of particles, is that particles have spin. And so not only do you think of an electron, is it orbiting around a nucleus, but it has a spin on its own axis, just like the Earth goes around the sun, but it's spinning on its own axis. And so an electron would be like a pitcher throwing a baseball. And you could throw a baseball and just have it go forward with no spin, but you can take it, and what if he gives a little right hand twist before he lets go of it? That's going to be corkscrewing around with a right hand spin. What if he takes and gives a left-handed spin? It's going to be moving in the same direction, but the spin characteristic is exactly opposite the other one. And so looked at sideways, you wouldn't be able to, you just see they're both moving this way. But looked at from behind here, you see one, if you saw a little dot that was on that baseball, one is spinning clockwise, the other one's spinning counterclockwise. And so particles have this characteristic of spin to them. We associate that with electrons, with photons, anything in its particle state.
And can they spin in any axis? Pitch, roll?
With pitch control, different types of
Pitch or
axes.
roll.
That would get us into other dimensions of things, but we could conceive of that, of something spinning on one axis, but also having, just like a diver, he goes off of the diving board, he does a front flip, but he does a twist to it. And one thing that we find there is that at right angles to the the flow of electrons, there is there's another idea here of the headedness. At right angles to electron flow is a magnetic field. And that magnetic field then will undulate according to these the spin characteristic. Now, if there's you could think of that as, let's say, walking down a tube. Get one of these great big sewer pipes or a hall or something. You walk down this, and let's say you have a bucket of paint, and you're holding onto this thing. Maybe you got a little rope or something, and it's got a bunch of little holes, or even that causes it to spew out little splatters. You're going to take that bucket and you're going to start spinning it around, and you walk down this tunnel. If you look on the walls, you'll see kind of a pattern. Now, if you're spinning just this way, you're going to get, just like a spiral helix that moves right on down. But if you add other factors to your spin, let's say go like so with that spin, and instead of just around like in that one spin where it's going forward, if you add another side of the spin, if you give it a spin that's moving this way at the same time as it's going this way, another axis of spin, you're going to get another more complex pattern that's going to show up on that wall. Even though there still is a spin here, but it goes another way. And then there would be even a third axis that you could add onto that from your different directions of spin that could then produce even a more complex pattern of splatters that are on that tunnel as you go down. Does that make sense? or give this idea of this spin characteristic. Now, if you're spinning this way, the opposite spin, the pattern will be a mirror image. And so these characteristics exist. Now, one thing that happens is when you have two particles that have once been joined together, associated, and they then have split off and gone their own separate ways, which we happen as you know, the energy level changes, then we have particles that move out. And we find a phenomenon of paired electrons that go off with opposite spins off in different directions. And what will happen is if you alter one of them, let's say one of them bumps into something and changes, its partner, no matter how far away it is going to respond. It knows what happened to its other partner in the universe. There's a symmetry that exists with these two things are going off in their own way. And for symmetry to be maintained, then something happens to one, then same thing has to occur to the other one to maintain symmetry. And so this is a strange characteristic that, well, how does this electron over here know what happened to this one over here instantaneously? And and this change happens instantaneously. It doesn't have to wait for the speed of light. It happens the moment one changes, the other one changes at the same time. And that comes out of some ideas that Einstein had proposed here, and it was tested out later on and verified here. So how do we explain that? Question?
Would that be the term Bell's theorem?
That's Bell's theorem.
Yeah.
And
Can we relate Bell's theorem to what we're doing and seeing in the reality of our practice?
in our practice, we're dealing with seeing connections, seeing things that happen that seem to not be limited by the speed of light or limited by space and time. One of those things here, let me put up a diagram, and I want to present with you an idea from the physicist Dr. Burkhard Heim. Now, I haven't read Heim's work. It's published in German, and I have some German, but I wouldn't be able to read a book in physics with that. But Dr. Wolfgang Ludwig has come over to this country a number of times, and he's also a physicist from Germany. He's done a lot of work in this area. Has presented these concepts, so I take it from there. We look at the different variables of, so we can go through. And look at a number of factors here. And we've got 1, 2, 3 right here. This is in looking at dimensions that exist, that things are made up of. Now, the idea here, let's just start out with something that's at the first point here. Here's a point. Now, a point, if you study geometry, you know a point doesn't exist. See, the point is the middle of that dot. And if I make a smaller dot, the point is still the middle of that dot, and it doesn't have any size at all. So that point doesn't exist. It has 0 dimensions. But the interesting thing is if I get 2 of them, then I can draw a line, and a line does exist, and it has 1 dimension, length. Now, if I can get more than 1 line, then I've got 2 dimensions. I can define a plane. flat sheet of paper here. So the plane, it has two dimensions, length and width. Now if I can get two planes, get one that goes across this way, and then I can get another plane that goes up and down here, then I've got three dimensions, and I can define a volume rather than just a plane. So something with volume then has three dimensions. We can use Cartesian coordinates. That's what Descartes came up with here. We have an x-axis, a y-axis, and a z to define the location of anything in space. Okay, you go over 5 units, go back 3 units, go up 2 units, that's where this thing is located. So then we've got our 3 dimensions. And then we have then the 4th dimension. Now, basically the idea here is we build up where we have more than one of the item that makes up our previous dimension. If I have more than one volume, or let's say I have an object, okay, it's sitting right here, and then I look again, and that object is sitting right here. So I go and see there's a dog, and I see there's a dog, he's right here at that spot, and half an hour later I go look and the dog's not there. The space that defines that dog is over here now. So how can that dog be in 2 places? You have to have another dimension to explain that, and that means he's not, or the box is not in 2 places at the same time. It's at one place at one time, and so that is time is our 4th dimension. And so that gets us volume, length, volume, or area, and length dealing right here. So it can't be, so time has to come in here to account for the same object being at 2 places. Or let's say I have the same place and I've got 2 different objects that occupy the same place. Okay? The orange pen is here. Now the black pen is here. So they're both at the same place but not at the same time. So time is that 4th dimension. So that's what physics has confined itself to, saying that explains everything. Time and space is all there is. So we've got 4 dimensions right here, and we can go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we can have define certain interactions that then with these 4 dimensions that can interact between, you know how 1-to-1 interacts here, well, dimension 1 to the 2nd dimension, etc. What we get here is 4 times 4, or 16 different equations and mathematical kinds of interactions that we can use to explain different phenomena. And so physics, modern physics, is trying to use only these variables to explain things, and there's certain things they can't find. For example, a graviton. It's the idea of quantum physics, quantum ideas goes back to Max Planck in the year 1900. And in order to work out some mathematics here, he postulated that everything is a kind of a unit, a quantity. You get the word quant. For quantum is it's a unit, a little packet. So things come in packets, in units. And so light is a wave, but also there's a photon, which is that unit of light, which is a packet. might think of like a packet of wave energy of some kind. And so the graviton is postulated, but it's never been found anywhere. And now when Heim says, explains, well, why that hasn't been found, and says there are more dimensions. And here we go, and we have a dimension 5, and a dimension 6. And you have to take these into account in order to explain the physical phenomena that exist. And so 6 times 6 gives us 36 different ways things can interact. So modern day physics is only looking at 16 out of 36. That's less than half of the phenomena that exist can be explained by a space-time model that doesn't go any further than just space and time. And so he's described that 5th dimension as entelechy, is the word. That's that force that causes something to reach its potential or its destination. It would be the structure of possibilities. When we get into the another principle here of taking an electron, there's an experiment where you take an electron and you shoot it through, and you have 2 little slits. Now what happens is the electron goes through both of them at the same time. But you'll only, because it puts a wave kind of a pattern on through. The electron acts like a wave because it can go through 2 slits at the same time. But when you look for the mass of the electron, it's only going to be at one place or the other one. But yet the field of it goes through both. And so Heisenberg had a principle of uncertainty. You may have heard of here, but it's saying that if you know the velocity of an electron, you don't know which one it is. If you know which electron you have, you don't know what its velocity is. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can know one thing about it, but not everything. And but if something is moving, let's just say that, there's a way to get from here back home. But is there only one way to get there? I live up in Seattle. I could go through LA, fly into Salt Lake City, take a plane to Chicago, and then fly back up to Seattle, and I would get home. But that's not the only way to do that. I could hop on a bus, and that would get me up there. I could fly out of here Monterey and just go the most direct route. But there are different possible ways to get from here to there. And so the idea of this dimension is the structure of all the possibilities that could be there. See, that electron had a possibility of the mass going through one little slot or the other one, but it didn't, the mass of it didn't go through both, but it had a possibility. Okay, and a photon coming from the sun, or just think of a billiard ball. You hit this thing in motion, there's all the different pathways it could hit. And those exist somewhere as these ideas of the possibilities. So that's this 5th dimension, the structure of possibilities. Here's a little diagram that outlines here. This is an example here of possible pathways here that a particle can take. And this is dealing with that same idea right here. There is a structure to what the possibilities are. And then number 6 is, he calls the aeonic, and that is the realization dimension. So you can have multiple possibilities here, but then only, we only have a certain one that gets realized. And so the area that defines the realized possibility comes at number 6. And just like you sit down to a menu, you're going to have lunch. Well, there's all possible things you could order, but we can end up looking back and say, well, there's the one that you did. And so the place that defines that realized possibility here is this 6th dimension. Now, according to Heim, a charged particle such as an electron occupies all 6 dimensions. A photon occupies only 4, 5, and 6, and does not occupy 1, 2, and 3. See, a photon, light doesn't take up any space, doesn't have mass. You can have 2 beams of light, and they shine right through each other, and they don't care if the other one's there or not. But 2 objects that have mass can't be at the same place at the same time, because they occupy space. Graviton, he says, occupies 5 and 6, but not 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's why it hasn't been found. Because it doesn't have any, it's spaceless and timeless, but it governs the possible pathways, and it affects the realization.
Why don't you tell him how lucky Einstein was?
And so these then constitute the physical cosmos. But that doesn't explain everything. And so he says then there's a dimension 7 and 8. That gives us 64. These are spiritual dimensions. So physics will never penetrate those coming out of this level right here. And I've been working with this thing trying to figure out what are these 7 and 8. I first heard that back about 1982 at a conference here. I've been going over that. And Ludwig never said much about those, but you know that there were certain equations that came into play based on the element, all the atomic elements that exist that have to account for all these things. And I finally had broken through on making some understanding jumping through there, and it kept on going to 9, 10, 11, and 12. At least 244 down here. And I talked with Dr. Ludwig just about a year ago and went through that, and he said, well, that's very interesting. Dr. Heim is rewriting his book, and he's now concluded that there's 12 dimensions instead of just 8. And that creates a type of symmetry here of there are 6 physical dimensions, 6 non-physical dimensions. And we'll get into those. These are the ones here this afternoon. What those get into. What I'd like to do is to have Wing Pond speak a little bit here. What time do we need to
Well,
have a lunch
they
break?
want to check out before noon, and it's now
Do we need
18
to do
minutes
that?
to 12.
Okay.
So
Maybe
why don't
we should
why don't we just break
take a break.
and then come back at 1:15, and we'll start at 1:15, okay?
Okay.
For the dentists that are here, one little announcement.
Had a meeting a while back and decided that to draw up. In fact, I went to an attorney and he gave us two alternatives, and I drew up one myself. This is for a Health Freedom Initiative amendment for the Constitution of the State of California. And what it would mean is that we would have to go out and have petitions signed if something like this were done. And what it does, it provides, I'm going to read one of these so you get an idea. They're all just a little bit different, but basically the same concept. Every person shall enjoy without limitation their right to choose and consult with any provider of health care to receive any treatment or therapy and to receive any dietary supplement, herb, drug, or substance that does not harm. Section 2, no health care provider, whether licensed or unlicensed, shall be denied the right to provide or prescribe any treatment, therapy, dietary supplement, herb, drug, or substance that does no harm. So in substance, if we were to do something like this, then we'd all be free to do the things we want to do. And we feel, as several of us feel, that the climate in the state of California is such that the people are ready for this kind of thing. And we're not saying that we're launching it to do this right now, but I'm passing this out to make you aware that this is under consideration. And this is somewhat the language you might use. It's going to have to go through several attorneys' hands to be sure that if it ever was passed, that the courts are not going to challenge it and turn some part of it over again. So when it comes to that point, why then we'll give you a refined document. But at this point, it makes you aware this is what we're thinking about, and if you have any input, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let's get microphone.
Get started again. Everybody have a good lunch?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll put up a little picture here. And just to illustrate the fact here that there are different ways of looking at reality, of the cosmos, of the universe, and what's around us. And I want to get just a little into different kinds of perception. There's a left brain style, there's a right brain type of perception. The constituency of matter, as we've seen here, is in some cases can be considered to be waves, in other cases is like particles. And light is one item that acts in one experiment like a particle, another experiment acts like a wave. There's a classic experiment that was done taking light and shining it through a barrier and seeing what happens. Now if we shoot, let's say there's a big sheet up here, we have one little pinhole, and we're shooting a bunch of BBs to go through that. If I'm shooting a bunch of those, I'm going to expect that they're all going to be clustered right where that hole is, and all the other parts of this wall that are covered up but don't have that little hole should still be empty. And that's the case with a bunch of particles that shoot on through. And we see that when we take a little pinhole and we shine light through it, and to see if it were a wave going through this one little hole, that would stop it. See, if you just think here of waves of water splashing up. If you put a barrier, it doesn't even have to be a total barrier, but if it's enough to break up that wave, then it won't happen. So you have, out of the area, you have a break for the wave, and you got a nice, cool, calm area for swimming or something near the shore, even if there's a few little holes in what's in there. So light will do that, and when a photon hits the piece of metal, for example, at the end, it absorbs into an electron. The electron goes to a higher energy level, energy orbit, and creates a current flow that can be measured. So we see that light can act like a particle. Even if I put up a barrier, some of it can still get through. But the other experiment is if I put up a single, instead of a hole through a solid barrier, we just put up it looks like a little post in the way. Now, if you put a piling stuck into the water out in the lake or the sea here, a wave comes crashing up to that. As soon as the front edge of the wave hits that one little piling in there, does the whole wave stop? Keeps going right around it, bends, rejoins itself, keeps on going. And so it's also found that light acts like a wave. You put a post in its way, it will come up there, and instead of hitting it and bouncing back, which a BB would do, a particle would, it simply bends, goes around it, and continues on its merry way. And so light acts like a wave. And so that's been the question here, is it a particle or is it a wave? Question.
Don't they have an experiment or an instrument where they have a bulb, kind of a windmill kind of thing, and it will shine light and it turns it? You ever seen that before?
Yes. Yeah, those,
Would that demonstrate that light's a particle then too?
and that's where light acts like a particle, because it keeps hitting this little thing here that's packed in a vacuum here, and it makes it
Right.
spin around like there's a wind or something that's hitting it.
Is that called a photometer? Just
So I'm not sure what to call those little gadget there, but that's another experiment that will show that. See, in physics, there's a term energy, which has a very specific definition. We use it colloquially in many different ways to describe how I feel, and or somebody that's real energetic, or whatever goes on, or even in there's questions. We'll take a bottle of homeopathic remedy, and somebody said that's pure energy, and so. Energy in physics is something that can apply force over a distance, can be converted to, which does work, to move force over a distance. And that will get us into another aspect of understanding what things are made up of. Because there are things that we talk of as energy which don't apply force over distance, such as whatever it is in the homeopathic remedy that works to make the body well. So if we were to measure the energy in a bottle of water and alcohol that didn't have a remedy in there, and measure the amount of energy that's in the water and alcohol that does have a remedy, then they would be the same. I take two videotapes, one before it's recorded, one after it's recorded. Okay, and measure the energy. You can say, well, we're putting energy into this videotape. What we're doing is we're rearranging its arrangement. We're putting some information in there, but that's different than energy. Because if you burn it, they'll probably both heat up just as much and burn just as long. If I can try to convert it back to thermal or heat energy, or I use it to attach a string to and let gravity pull something of the same weight. That part, the mass part of the energy that's in there is the same. So there's a concept that we have of what things are made up of. There's mass, there's energy, but there's a third category which is different than those, which is information. And Wing Pond will get into that. He's developed a lot more of the theories that tie that in. We need to understand. So what's in a homeopathic remedy, for example, is information that the body can interpret, it can use, and it's like putting the video tape into the player, then it converts it into something that is meaningful information that can produce a response. As long as the videotape is sitting here in its case, it doesn't cause me to do anything. If I put a movie in there and I watch it, I could laugh, I could cry, I could be amused, or if it's just static, I'll get bored, fall asleep. There's a difference, but I don't know the difference until it's being, the information is then being converted into a form that the living system responds to. We find that living systems respond a lot to information, but there's this duality. And on the one side, we have the particle side of the cosmos, and we have a left brain that is designed to perceive and understand things in a particle sense, particle nature. The auditory. Now when I'm speaking, I have to speak one word after another, and they come in a certain sequence. Just like little BBs of words being shot out here, and that's sequential. And so particles move in sequence. They have an order. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now when I look at something, and if I want to look at everybody in the room, okay, that's a visual kind of a function, and that's not inherently sequential. Like, I'm looking here, I don't have to look at you first, and then I got to look at you, and whoops, I forgot him. I looked in the wrong order. I got to start all over again. Okay, looking, you just take everything in simultaneously or randomly. Okay, I can take in and look at everything in the room, look there first, look over here, look over there. Doesn't matter, it's like a puzzle. Doesn't matter what order you put it into, so long as all the pieces come into there. Any order is just as, makes just as much sense as any other sequence or order. So the right brain is the more visual type that encompasses everything at the same time. It's like a wave. Wave is everywhere simultaneously. Whereas a particle is here and then it's not. And when one particle goes, then there's another one. You see these cars going one after the other out there. Well, they're kept to go in a certain order. And so the science has used this left brain way of looking at things that says, let's break it up into particles. Here's a body, but I don't want to look at the whole body. In fact, it moves around too much. Let's kill it and send this sample back to the lab, and then we'll slice it up and we'll count all the pieces. And we'll give names to every part. So we look at all the bones, we look at all the muscles, we look at all these little tubes. And a scientist over the years that were able to split something else apart that nobody else saw, then they give their name to it. So you've got the eustachian tube, and you've got the fallopian tube here. We've got all these, the Meckel's diverticulum that he found here, and the pouch of Douglas, and all these parts of the body. So the scientist, that's what you get to do when you're scientists. If you split something up smaller, and nobody else saw it, then you give the first name to it, then you get into history that way. But that's been the left brain approach, is dead things, chop them up into pieces, and give names to every little part, and keep track of them all. And that's then especially taking things out of its context so that we can get it as a unit all by itself. And that's where you don't find acupuncture meridians flowing in the cadaver. And so you can't study them in their functional state. Now, in Chinese medicine, dissection was forbidden, so they had to use another approach, which is to look at the overall interactive state of how these meridians and this energy flow or qi is interacting and how one organ influences the other. If you look at this is a Penrose triangle. Now we'll use our approach, which the left brain is the telescopic or microscopic approach here. We look at one thing out of context, all by itself. So let's look at this little piece there. It looks very logical, that makes sense. And let's look at this corner, each one separate. And we could, look at each part out of context. We could say, well, this thing is very feasible, let's go build one. But then when you try to put all those pieces together, you find that this is we'll join those things. I don't know if I got a picture of the Penrose triangles by itself, but that's a type of illusion there. You can't build one of these things. You all see that? But we can draw it, we can think about it, we can talk about it, and use some physical kinds of ideas here, but that can't exist in three-dimensional reality because of the nature of that. So that's part of the difference. The right brain sees everything all at once and is able to take that in, to experience and understand the nature that everything is all simultaneous. That's for art, philosophy, conceptual types of things, the more visual or the punches, the intuitive side. And what we're working is developing then a complete science that looks at not just the particle nature of things, but the wave nature of reality.
Doug?
Yeah.
Question. To explain to someone that's unfamiliar with EAB, how you can have a substance confined in a barrier, an ampule, put it on a testing well, and say that then is in circuit of the body when there's a barrier around it, so it's essentially particles or waves couldn't go through there. How do you explain that?
Okay.
It's like a radio.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to talk about that. How can you test the vibrations of something that's in the little ampule? And just one thing to think of that. If I put a magnet inside that little bottle and I bring it up to some metal, is that going to contain that magnetic field? They're going to block it? Okay, if you ever tried that, you'll see that glass does not block a magnetic field. It goes right on through. So there's some electromagnetic component to this energy field that we're dealing with the homeopathic remedies. Let me just cover a couple other things right here. I'll put a little diagram that's right here, which is a little one that I use to illustrate different parts of reality. We have a body. We could divide ourselves up into 3 different regions that our senses operate in. So we're dealing with the physical world. We're trying to sense things and then measure that in some way. All the machines that we make are really extensions of our senses, our 5 senses. We're just taking something and trying to get it a finer tuned measurement. If we take a look here, let's we see this orange okay here? Okay, we have, okay, let's look on the mechanical side of the body. We've got 2 senses that pick things up on the mechanical. These are sound waves coming into the ear. Okay, your sense of touch will pick up mechanical vibrations. This thing is moving, vibrating. I feel it with a sense of touch. If something is vibrating very fast, faster than my ears will pick it up, and it'll vibrate in the ears. One is the gross sense that picks things up in a broader sense, and we have a fine-tuned sense. So those are 2 mechanical senses that we have. So that covers part of reality out here. We have 2 chemical senses. Okay, we have okay, here's a tongue. So we have the sense of taste. Okay, that'll pick up the chemicals in their more concentrated form, but it's not as refined. You know, we get a sour, there's a lot of protons around. It's acid, we pick up sweet. We get the bitter, we can get salty taste here. But the more refined sense is the sense of smell, which will pick up very small, subtle concentrations of aromatic compounds here. Actually, our eating and pleasure from eating things and the taste, a lot of that really is the smell. You get it cold, you eat something that doesn't taste as good because you can't smell the aroma that's in there. We have 2 chemical sensors. You know, doctors years ago, you would diagnose. We didn't have lab equipment, so they would use their built-in lab here to test diabetes. We've got 2 kinds: diabetes insipidus, diabetes mellitus. So the doctor would drink the urine of the patient, and if it tasted sweet like honey, it was diabetes mellitus. If it was insipid and didn't have that taste, then it was diabetes insipidus. And we've gone a little more sophisticated. We've got labs that do that for us, but really all they're doing is substituting for a chemical lab that we had in our body. And now we have an electromagnetic level of sensing things. And so we have vision. And that picks up, as we saw, this one little narrow band. If you look at all the octaves of frequency, keep multiplying all these things down there, about 75, maybe 80 different octaves of known frequencies of the universe. So we take, say 10 hertz, go to 20 to 40 to 80, etc., each of those being an octave. the visible spectrum is only one octave, one slice out of these 75 octaves. But the eyes split that all up into different colors. And we've got two senses on each of these other ones. I've got a little empty spot right down there. And so there must be a sense that picks up, what about all these other octaves of the electromagnetic spectrum besides the one little section of visible light? Does our body have anything that picks those up and responds to that? What about ELF frequencies? What about the radio frequency? What about microwave? What about ultraviolet? And so that is this, what is that? Some people claim they can pick it up, they can see an aura. What are they using? Some people feel this chi, this energy field. And they're getting, maybe they feel a little tingling, electrical tingling in their head. Or however they sense that. But this is what we could call that sixth sense. And we know where the centralized areas for all these other senses are, but where is that sixth sense located? Anybody got any ideas?
Outside the body. Immediately outside the body.
Saying outside the body? He says it's up here. Any other candidates?
Limbic hypothalamic?
The limbic hypothalamic area. Any other ideas?
Pineal.
The pineal gland. The solar plexus. And so the answer to that is yes.
That'll be a
It's only possible answer.
Okay, that I relate this one to it's a non-localized sensory system that we have, and it's mediated through the autonomic nervous system, which gives all kinds of sensations that are the indicator that it's been triggered and stimulated. It can make the pupils change. It can make the skin electrical charge change. It can make the pulse change. It can make the smooth muscles of the intestine spasm just a little bit. It can make the diaphragm change so that muscle and muscle strength will change. And so it's the body has, in fact, the whole body itself is an antenna. There's an experiment was done, trying to make artificial antennas and putting in different solutions and trying different shapes, straight tubes, and make something more like the body. And they found that the human body was an excellent, out of all the models that they tried, was the best antenna. It picked up all kinds of different frequencies. And so you're a walking antenna. You're picking these things up, absorbing or picking up, responding to all kinds of information, but it's not not triggering those 5 localized senses, which the left brain can really put a handle on and measure and try to quantify. What the right or the left brain will quantify things. The right brain gives qualifying, it gives a quality to something. And that's what is the other side of our perception. Now we have different parts of us, and we see, well, there's this physical part, there's the chemical interactions. That's where when we're doing medicine, we're trying to evaluate the person. Part of that person's their body, part of their body's mechanical. So you can do an orthopedic test, you can physically inspect and see how the teeth look, palpate organs, see how they are, do an x-ray and see how that looks, take scopes and fiber optics and look inside and see what things look like. That's the more the mechanical and the physical appearance. And use what's happening there. We can look and do chemical tests. That's our blood tests and the blood and urine chemistry type tests, chemical assays, and we get the chemical side of what's happening in the body. And the chemical and see, we can see somebody has arthritis, can't bend their joint. It's where it's stiff and painful. We see, well, there's a mechanical problem. Then we check out and we see, well, there's very high concentration of certain crystals here. Maybe their big toe hurts. We find, oh, you have a lot of uric acid in here. You've got some gout. So there's a chemical reason behind the mechanical problem that can occur. But then behind that, the electromagnetic is, well, why did the uric acid concentrate in that one spot? Why didn't it go somewhere else? Why did they gather together? Why didn't they repel? Why did that happen? There's an electromagnetic change that happens, that attracts things and moves them to where they're going to go, that happens first. Happens at a deeper level, and then it can influence chemical things. It can then influence mechanical, eventually. And at that level, there can be direct interactions, but we don't always find the chemical reason for the mechanical problem. Sometimes the change is so subtle that it hasn't shown up yet here. So they say, well, your blood test is normal, go home, you're fine, you're not sick, you don't have any problem because you're normal. And we'll wait till it gets worse. When our tool is too crude to pick those up. That's where the bioenergetic types of testing methods are looking at the electromagnetic disturbances and seeing, well, these can be much in advance, and maybe 2 years before it can show up in these other areas as possible, and then that can let us do preventive work. Now this model here, we have these correspondences. Now there's another part of us which is this totally non-physical part that gets more into the metaphysical or theological area. We talked about spirit. And there's an analog in those same aspects here where we can have influence. Same thing on the psychological side. So we have emotion, but emotion can be as similar to chemicals. Chemicals, hormones, and things change. The neurotransmitter levels change, then emotions can be strongly influenced that way. We have the area of the mind where we're dealing with thoughts and ideas and things here, and that's more into the electromagnetic. We might just think of thoughts are electric. Thoughts are magnetic. They're information transfer at the electromagnetic level. We have the mechanical part, which is our muscles. That's an analogy to willpower. Say, I will not do that. Trying to tempt me to do this thing here, I'm going to grit my teeth, plant myself firmly, not let my muscles move, and I won't do that thing with willpower, because that is a mechanical type of thing that stops it or says, I will do this, and then you do something. So those make an analogy here. At this other level here, we have this part of us that we would call spirit, and we have the mind that takes and deals with all kinds of facts and information and concepts, but what it deals with came out of somewhere else. It's this area associated with creativity, different things. Those are ideas. Where do they spring from? The mind will take information and manipulate it and do formulas with things, but behind that was the creative idea and the whole thought and the design in the beginning. Where did that come from? So that is something, and we use that term, the creative spirit, and this inspirational side of things. We have chemical changes, we've got emotions, but behind emotions are attitudes. That is one way to think of that is a fixed kind of a pair of emotions that give a kind of a slant to things. So that if a person has an attitude of skepticism, then they'll tend to have certain emotions that go with that. They have an attitude of optimism or pessimism, these type of things, then that influences the emotional level. In accordance with this particular slant is where things are going to tend to move toward. We put that up into the analog, and same thing The will, that's where conscience comes in here, is if we have this part of us that if we violate those standards of conscience, that's something that we've done that influences our willpower. You know, the little thing here, you have the devil talking in one ear and you have the angel talking in the other ear, and there's little voices that talk back and forth. I better not do that. Don't eat that piece of chocolate cake, or whatever your temptation is. But that's, and that one corresponds here to hearing in the same way. We have, in that spiritual level, we've got ears that are aware of things at another level, and we think of that as sound. It's a little voice, or that feeling that says it doesn't feel right to do something. That's the conscience level. Attitude, somebody comes in and they have a real bad attitude that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Okay, or they come in here and you sense they're trying to swindle me out of something smells fishy. There's just something in the attitude that's going on there and so we have to associate what we pick up in the spiritual level with physical senses. And we get up here into creativity. Well, that's a vision. You see this thing, a dream. You see it in your mind's eye, or you get this inspiration in there just as a feel. That's this intuitive type of thing that comes out with this burst of inspiration, creativity. That's more similar to that sixth sense that comes together out of nowhere. You don't quite know where it came from, but there it comes. And let's move on from there, and I want to finish these dimensions that we talked about, we got started on, and let's see here, so cover up some of those. Okay, we talked about these first 6 dimensions right here. And that gets us into another area of seeing where these different parts of our being would fall. Okay, we've got these first 3 that deal with space, and I'm just adopting another term here I call hyperspace, which is just I don't know if everybody else has used that just as a term here of saying that's another level above space, but it's part of this physical reality. Now your body occupies space and time. I want to describe you to some Martian out there and saying, okay, I want you to locate Ed Arana. And I'll say, well, okay, on February, whatever the date is.
They know where he is.
Today, that's right, they know that. But there's a certain little set of coordinates that I can get an X, Y, Z axis, and at a certain time, and it says he's right there. If you can intercept him, that's where he'll be. And so that's where your body falls. Now, the other area that deals with this other area is then we get into more of the mind area, the possibilities and realization. Now, we saw where you have multiple times, then that opens up possibilities. If it says dinner's at 6, well, there's no possibilities there. See, we could have dinner at 6, we could have it at 7, we could have it at 8. Now, suddenly we have multiple times, there are possibilities. Dinner could happen any of those times. Now, once we have multiple possibilities, then we have to have that tie together with a realization. Now, we've got Ed here. One possibility is he died at birth when he was 5 minutes old. So he wouldn't be here right now. Another one is he lives to be 150 years old and sees the American Academy of Biological Dentistry take over everything here, so there's another possibility. And that then becomes the
New AMA.
that's right. The ADA people will say, well, what was that group here? Oh, they're still out there trying to do mercury and holding on that old doctrine here now. But when you have multiple possibilities, then that can narrow down a path of realization. Now, realization will deal with, so you can have something that exists and it's real, that it doesn't occupy time or space yet. Okay, you have, let's say we have a flying machine. Now, back in the days of Da Vinci, it was real to him. He drew pictures of a flying machine. It wasn't possible at that time. So just as we can take a diagram, let me find another one here. You know how we can make an XYZ axis here. And X and Y, and a Z-axis that can describe where something is in physical space. We can take another axis. We can have a time axis. We can have a possibility axis. We can have a realization axis that exist also superimposed, but they don't take up space. But it's hard to think in 6 dimensions visually, because 3 is about as far as we can go and hold them all in there. But just think in that same way here. So what it took was for time and possibility axis to both converge and meet at the same time as the reality axis of the flying machine. That wasn't until 1900 in the Wright brothers, when all the possible certain things had to get invented after Da Vinci's day to make it possible. So they hadn't been invented, so time, you know, like these different lines that could have been intersecting, well, they just missed at that time. They weren't ready to converge all at the same place and bring it into where we saw it in physical reality with the actual machine you can see and touch and feel that flies. But that's moving into another application of these ideas of impossibility and time. But those are coordinates that then can describe something. So what we're dealing with also here is then we're needing to bring into reality a concept of a new type of medicine. And for many of us, it's real, and we're trying to be able to describe it in more and more detail. The more detail you can describe it in, then the more real it is. This watch had to be real in the mind of the watchmaker before it could get built. So it had to exist in that 6th dimension first, before then the possibilities that we're going to mold these parts, and we have to do all of that. We've got to take the time to put it together. Now here it is. And move it on down through the dimensions. Okay. Now, let's move on through and take that same idea. Multiple realizations. Now, another idea to help understand that, what's real, and my thought here is the electron, which is a charged particle, according to Heim, occupies 1 through 6. Now, where is the negativity of the electron? Where does that exist? Does it take up any space? Does it occupy time? One interesting thing here, according to Heim, a neutron takes up space but not time. So it's timeless, and I'm not sure how he goes on there, but if there's no charge, and I'm not sure on all the full implications, but my idea is that number 6, the realization is where the charge of the particle exists. So a neutron, in that case, would not occupy dimension 6. That doesn't apply to it. But if we think of that as the charge, the positivity, the negativity, they exist in the realization. That's what's real about something, is a charge, a polarity. When we get a bunch of polarities or a bunch of charges together, and we have more than one pole, then that creates, well, what do we have between the positive, bunch of positive, bunch of negative? Or a positive, negative, that is a potential, and using this just as an illustration to try to move to this other concept here. But a potential is something that could be but isn't. So it really is not, in that sense, a physical reality, but it's something that could get brought into physical reality. Just like, you know, we have that's what lightning is, the bringing of a potential then into an electron flow, electrical flow. But where a potential is something that isn't quite real. We use the same thing here. Look at this young child here. Look at his potential. Look what that life could be doing. That becomes more of a spiritual quality, or a quality of, you know, of the mind, of what you could develop. Don't let that mind go to waste. There's a great potential. And the multiple potentials, just in terms of like electricity, if I want to store up lots of potentials, then I need to have a battery or a capacitor. I have to have capacity. So I use that term capacity as that which holds multiple potentials, more potentials. And so and we use that same term in a more of a spiritual sense of a capacity. Here's a person with great capacity for being compassionate, great capacity for different mental, emotional kinds of qualities. And so we relate these qualities here to the psychological aspect. And so we find that the psyche straddles the physical and the non-physical area. Now, we move over here, and we have the next one, multiple capacities, comes into what I'm calling design. And just think of, we want to have a car, and we need to have a capacity. It's got to hold 6 people, but it's got to have room for all this luggage, so many cubic feet. But we have to have an engine that'll give us, 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. Here we need to be able to go 400 miles in a tank of gas, whatever. All these are different, capacity factors that we're wanting to put together. What does that require? Designers have to go to the drawing board, and they've got to design something that integrates a number of different capacities. And so that becomes then a higher level of a quality that we would call more of a spiritual quality, is that of design of something. And we can look at something, see there's some design factor. Let's just take an object that most of you have around the house here. It's got like a long handle, maybe wooden or metal. It's got kind of a big solid metal head on there with a flat part here and a couple little curves that go down on this side. You can hold on that thing and put a nail here and pound it down. But you look at this thing and say, well, this obviously, this is little ridges down here just like to grip your fingers. It's almost like it was made to have your fingers go down there. Look, the weight is on here. It's easy to hold it here. There's a good balance to it. Look at that flat end right here. It's not a point. It's not jagged. Almost as if it was meant for me to take a nail and be able to hit that thing and be able to stay on there. And even if I make a mistake, I pull the thing out there. So there's something about that hammer that is more than just design. There's a number of design features that are all built in there. And so we say, well, that must have a purpose. And it was, all those things were combined for some reason. wasn't just a random choice of things here. But that's another part of that here is multiple designs then are tied together with purpose. Now then we have multiple purposes, and we have here we look at a life of a person, and we may see a number of different purposes that can tie in here. Maybe there's a purpose to. We see that more so with especially with people that are famous in history. But we look at someone that they have a purpose was to be the inventor of the light bulb, or inventor of this and that, and to revolutionize the whole nature. Takes Edison, for example. Here he's see a number of purposes: revolutionizing things, inventing things, changing everything around. But there are educational purposes, political purposes, business purposes. All these things tie together. What is it that can tie a number of different purposes of a life all together? Use the word here, destiny, as something which is in a higher level that can link together purposes or that particular force. And then that which affects multiple destinies. And there's that comes into play here. Let's say we have a person that just to give an example here, but the destiny of something, we could say, well, here's a little breed of animal. I developed it, and here it is, and I'm done using this little breed of mouse here for something here. I'm just going to destroy the whole thing. Sacrifice them all, and this little strain will be over and done with. It's extinct. Nobody will ever see from it again. Okay, that's the destiny of this little breed of mouse. Now, who is it that could influence, or what is it that could influence that and decide to make the whole thing extinct? We see that in history. Here's somebody who's a warrior, conqueror, and he says, I'm just going to wipe these guys out. Don't want to see them anymore. We're going to take over their place here. But that's or say, well, we got a war in Vietnam. We're going to send all you guys down there. And somebody is in that place that has that influence. And the term here that I've used there is authority, or an ultimate influence. But whoever is in that place of having that authority has the say over the destinies. You're the one that created this little thing here, you can destroy it. Or if you have either usurped authority, you granted it, or having that thing done, then you sign the order that says we're going to draft all these people because it had the president's signature on it. Because he had the authority to do that. But that becomes then this highest level of this spiritual quality, is that ultimate influence, the authority that says whether you exist or you don't. And if you're under, we get into that issue here, if you're under a particular authority that says, well, people that believe like you do don't have any right to exist, then either you go under the authority and you say, okay, make me extinct, or you say, well, there's another authority, just like our country here. They said, sorry, England, we have another destiny, and we need to have another authority, and so we're going to suddenly become a new country, and the universe going to have to make room for us to exist as another authority. And same thing in the medical scientific area. That's why a group like this exists. It's becoming an authority of its own that then can see that those that are under that authority then have the protection and the backing of the authority that's above that. It becomes a little umbrella protection.
Tell them about the physics of dues.
The physics of dues. Okay, that's a very important part of the dues, those little round coins, are like energy.
That's right.
And the wheels that turn things need to have something that comes in the one end and keeps it spinning around. So can't So if the engine's going to keep going, we need to have that going. So Ed can tell you all about that, and you've had it right here. You pass your hat if you need to here, or have them sign up, sign their lives away, recruit them here.
It's just tying in the lecture with our needs,
Yes,
you know?
Is that called space-time continuum?
Absolutely.
that's right.
I thought so.
So what I'd like to do now is to have Wing Pon come and present some information. He's been, had a hobby for a number of years of pulling and integrating together Western science and Eastern philosophy. And just mentioned he's been working on, what is it, 8 volumes now, writing together his years of contemplating and researching and pulling things together. So he'll be presenting. He just came back recently from China, was invited to speak in Beijing. People travel from China, I think, with 13 hours of lecture, a lot of material. So he's going to just take some highlights of this information, and he's, I think, will be one of the key individuals right now of having an understanding of tying together the physics from the, the technical physics point of view that will take and extend things into the area that's been somewhat in the metaphysical, but hasn't really had a foundation. So, Megan, come on up and thank you, Douglas.
Thank you. I have a spiritual plane, but after hearing what Douglas said, the plane is all gone, so I'm going to speak from off my head, I guess. I want to give you a little background on what I have done in these volumes. It's a hobby of mine that try to integrate Eastern philosophy and Western science. I'm a scientist, I'm a physicist in training. However, I grew up in a very dialectic environment. I have family members, a traditional Chinese doctor and also MD. So I'm kind of right in between them. And ever since I was small, I said there's only one reality out there, why they argue. So I have somehow make it happen to try to integrating the two. And it took me about over 30 years to do that. Then I have found a solution that satisfies me. Okay. Let me start off there's 2 ways to know a process or a thing. The first way is sit here observing, like this gentleman over there, looking into the camera and adjusting it. And then try to figure out what he's doing. And write down a formula, write down a model, how to build that particular piece of instrument and how to use it. That's a scientific way. Then there's another way to understand is that what happens if I'm the instrument? How would I work to be perfect? And just like when Newton started working on his theory of gravitation, he asked a question, looking at the planet, hey, why the planet go around and what holds them together, go around in certain motion? But Leibniz, a contemporary of Newton, he asked a different question. He said, if I'm the planet, what would I do to conserve energy to go around the sun? So both answer to both questions, okay? Before you've got to have answer to both questions before you really know the process. Okay, the scientific know half of the process, but the East mostly on the latter knowledge about if I am the planet, what would I do? Know the other half. And none of them talk to each other. Okay. So I've been spending over 30 years now figure out a way how to tie the two together. My thought is there's nothing that is new out there that people have not thought of. Okay. So there's nothing to invent. I feel we have 5,000 years of civilization, 5,000 years of history. So my view is that anything that you want to know should be in the output of civilization. So my philosophy is to, hey, in order to get a theory that works, all we need now is to integrate the 5,000 years of civilization. Well, how are you going to do that? So I come up with an idea and a thought that maybe you biologists could tell me I'm right or not. I feel that the theory of evolution, that 5 to well, around 6 to 13,000 years ago, our right brain are fully developed. In such a way, although back 10 to 13,000 years ago, we don't really have a language yet. But we feel things, okay? We see things with our mind. We're in touch with the universe. The reason Stonehenge, the stone is sit there so accurate with the geometry of the whole universe, pointing to the star, is because we felt the energy there. We felt if I lay down on the piece of rock, I feel good. So I'm going to put the rock there. So my view is that evolution on the right brain at that stage is really at the peak. Now, at that time, people see things, people feel things. Obviously, they want to make it. They want to make what they saw. But when they start making it, they got to use the left brain. They got to understand the tools, the nitty-gritty, the detail, the linear aspect of it before they can build. So that's the beginning of a left brain evolution. So, but left brain really did not quite evolve until the 17th century. Okay? And that's the beginning of a mechanistic aspect. And really, left brain really did not really to a point where the right brain was about 8,000 years ago, is this century. And probably peak toward the end of the century and beginning of next century. So my concept is that if I could take what's developed in the left brain this century and take what developed in the right brain 6,000 years ago, then all the time in between, I could say that's garbage. The reason it's garbage because the right brain have certain phenomena that they have probably passed down the generation, okay, through word of mouth. Then as the generation goes, the left brain becomes developed, then try to explain what's going on. Except the left brain is not mature enough to explain it. So the explanation is nothing but garbage. So my view is that if we could take the right brain, the ancient classic, and look at the very simple concept. So simple that the left brain says, that's garbage. You know, I mean, a kid could do that. But now you're talking about a left brain beginning, 6,000 years ago. So I feel those concepts is accurate from the right brain standpoint. Now then on the left brain, take the last generation, take quantum mechanics, take relativity theory, take evolution, take those concepts. Hey, those probably accurate. That's the left brain concept. And that's also explain why there's lots of modern physics, concept in modern physics, that very much similar to ancient philosophy. That's because the left brain seen the same thing the right brain saw 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, except the language is different. So that's how I developed my model. And any question so far? Yes.
You're acquainted with the work of Julian James, aren't you?
Yes. But he never did spell out exactly what I just said. He hinted it in his book.
Yeah, but again, he places the importance on the Greeks, and within the Golden Age, the Greeks, Socrates,
Yes.
Plato, Aristotle,
Yes.
etc., coming to awareness of the individual, and particularly this is related, some other work that's been done here too, to becoming aware of the individual with rights and duties under the law. So you have individual responsibility, and this leads to the development of self-consciousness and so forth. It's distinguished from the group consciousness where you have
It's by
voice
camel
of the
mind.
gods
Yeah,
coming in.
it's by camel mind. Yeah, the breakthrough of
By
by
camel
camel mind.
right.
Well, the thing is, there's another way you could see why the right brains were evolved way back there. You look at a cave art. The cave art developed about 8 to 13,000 years ago. And look at the realistic drawing of it, really real when you draw a person. Then when you look at century later, It's not, the art is not there anymore. So all of a sudden, from 8 to 13,000 years ago, creativity just boom, all of a sudden. Just like creative just boom from the 19th to the 20th century. So so that's the integrated tool. I feel I feel there should be a model describing this universe. And the integration really did not generate any new concept, but generate a lot of new insight into interpreting what we currently have. And one element that I used to integrate it is this element of information. Okay, information. If you ask what is information, I mean that's kind of very hard to explain. Okay, the word is very simple. We use it all the time. But what is information? Does the atom have information? Does the electron have information? Okay, I claim everything have information. Depends what degree of information you're talking about. Information, okay, like an electron have information because an electron have subjectivity. Okay, in other words, there's certain input he takes, there's certain output he does. Okay, there's certain attribute inside the electron that's unique to the electron. So electron have subjectivity. Only respond to certain input. And it's also, let's see, what else? Information is developed in science right now. It's only for communication purpose. Bits of information coming in. Okay, but that's nothing but bookkeeping information. You know, how many bits in this piece of paper? But if you give this to a Chinese, doesn't matter how many bits in this paper. Okay, he doesn't understand anyway, because that's entropy to him. You know what? Anybody know what entropy means? Entropy means that disorder, that disrupting your thought process. Okay, if I speak, just like I speak English in this in China on this lecture to the Academy of Science, I have translator, but translator, sometimes mistranslate your thought. So what you generate, rather than information, but entropy. Rather clarify your mind, but you really mess it up, disturb it. So there is certain thing called value in information, which the scientists have not been able to study. But value is really a subjectivity of an individual. You only respond to certain information when there's value to you. Okay, so that's really subjectivity. Now also, another thing about information is that it's always, when I was back in college, in school days, I always ask questions that the teacher can answer. So one question I ask, the physicists always say, matter is made of a wave and particle. And they also tell me, but wave doesn't like particle and particle doesn't like wave. They kind of, the property are kind of opposite, antagonistic of each other. And I said, how the hell matter is stable? If you have a dog and a cat, they can't come close together, how could they marry? Well, the answer is you don't ask those questions. You just go do the problem. Well, just that question, okay, it took me 30 years to get an answer for myself. So what my feeling is that matter now got to be understood not as a duality. I want to complicate it a bit, but as a trinity, as a triangle, rather than as a, as 2 points. Matter is composed of, maybe I should just give, I skip over a lot because okay, let me just explain what matter is to me. Matter is really that. But what is that? Matter is wave, particle, and logic. Now, it's neither wave, no particle, no logic. It's all free. Now, logic is a criteria. It's a holistic criteria. It's a criteria of whole. Logic is holding the wave and particle together as a unity. In other words, the wave and particle interact with certain logic pre-established in nature. The logic, that's pre-established logic is wholeness. To hold the wave and particle together. But the essence Okay, that's what the matter is. But the essence keep on changing. The being of a certain thing keep on changing. So what it changed become a becoming, changing all the time. Really, this becoming, if you want to linearly say particle, the aspect of becoming, changing is mass. The aspect of logic changing is information. The aspect of wave changing is energy. Okay? Now, even in that hookup, wave and particle together and logic together, there's two triangles, being and becoming. The interaction follow a least action principle. And what is a least action principle? That's all. You can understand least action principle before you could talk about value of information. The least action principle is this. If I want to walk from here to the corner of that room, okay, well, the easiest way to do it is for me to walk straight line, okay? But I got all these people sitting here, all this table over here. For me to walk a straight line, it's harder for me to go around the corner. So I'm going to go around the corner. The table has a constraint. But I will walk to the end of that room with the least amount of energy. That's the most economical way. In fact, that's the law of nature. Bertrand Russell calls this law the law of cosmic laziness. Okay? In other words, so don't feel bad when you're lazy. Okay? Well, that's how God created us. And God is lazy, infinite lazy. You know. Okay? So that's what least action is. The least action is said that from here to the corner of the room, okay, I don't have to try out all the path to get there and measure with an instrument and say, hey, how much action I expended. I automatically know, without trying, that I automatically know which path to get there. That's what least action principle is. Now, value is that, first of all, you have information. Information is just look at DNA and a template, okay? Information transfer when the DNA, the right template, the right DNA, the lock and key configuration hook up, okay? So first of all, you gotta have the right lock and key configuration between you and what you want to know. Knowledge. Knowledge is the constraint, the lock configuration, key or the key. Then you hook up with the lock configuration outside to know. But in order to have value to know, you have to have this interaction in such a way that the economic principle come in. Once that's satisfied, then then you have a value transfer. Now, to do that, I lost my train of thought. That's what happens when you don't follow the view graph. So where am I now? Okay,
You just talked about this action.
okay. Now let's get back to from this. Let's take a look at some of the concepts that we change in the current physics now. Some of the concepts we change.
Upside down.
Okay, based on not just wave and particle, but at the component of logic. Current model right now, we have wave, particle, collapsed the wave into a particle. It's an particle aspect of matter to wave aspect of matter. Now, the reason uncertainty principle come in, nobody have given me an answer yet, but I think this is how you explain the uncertainty principle. The particle aspect is really a three-dimensional picture of things. In other words, the Euclidean aspect of the Newtonian mechanics. The wave aspect are really four-dimensional, a space-time aspect. But when you try to fit back from a three-dimensional to a four-dimensional aspect, you're going to lose some information. Because you lost one dimension when you go backward. So in the loss of the information, you have the uncertainty principle. But that's not it, okay? Now, the model with the logic in there is a little bit different. You have a logic, okay? Logic is really a spaceless, timeless entity. I mean, there's no space, no time in describing logic. Okay? So logic is really a non-local aspect of matter, the Bell's theorem. Okay? Currently, there's still no explanation for Bell's theorem yet. Okay? So, but logic is really contain the whole message of matter. When that collapses to a wave aspect, that collapses to a four-dimensional, and back to a particle, feedback again. So in a non-local aspect, you even lose more information. Non-local is really the vacuum, the logic of the universe. So what amounts to logic is an open system. There's a reservoir. There's a huge whole bunch of reservoir there. That's why we got a theory, because from the reservoir of logics. Okay, this is explaining why some of the phenomena in the EAV. Okay, because in the current model of physics, there's an Einstein's conservation law. Mass equals to mc squared. Now, from the new aspect of logic, you also have another, the information could be converted to energy. Okay? So the information, so conservation now is energy, information, and mass. So any information that you receive, this also explains your, what do you call it, your suggestive effect in your body. Somebody, the doctors, what they call that?
Intuition.
Huh?
Intuition.
Intuition or some
Placebo?
the placebo effect. That also come right into placebo effect, because the information could create energy you need to operate your systems. And that also explains homeopathic, because of the information. Now, what is this information? Now I want to get into what is the information. How do you measure it? What is the physical nature of information? Now let's ask this question. Information to me is anything that changes. Anything that moves is information. Anything that stays still, there's no information there. Because if I tie the horse with free rope, okay, all tie and stay still, when I look at it, it's always there. So I always know he's there, so there's no information. But if I cut the roof off, I look at it, he's not there anymore, that's information. Information tells me he's not there. So try to find him. Find the horse. And that's information. Information is changing. And so any movement creates information. Okay? So we could relate information to momentum. Okay? The momentum is something that moves. And that could be derived using some other aspect of physics, but I'm not going to do it right here. I'm just going to do it descriptive. So information relate to momentum and interchange. So how do you describe information mathematically? But what is momentum? Momentum, you not only move in straight line, but you could also move in circle, in changing direction, angular momentum, the spin of the particle. So it happened that Penrose developed a whole geometry, what he called twistor geometry. Twistor geometry, what he used is his concept is that he want to go beyond space and time. He want to develop the whole quantum mechanics, the whole relativity theory, whole space-time with pre-geometry. A geometry that don't have space, don't have time. But how are you going to develop something when there's no space, no time? So that particular development got to be create its own attribute, create its own space-time. So he come up with taking the spin of an elementary particle. The spin of an elementary particle is measured by 1/2 h bar, or 1 h bar, or multiple energy of h bar. So he's using the spin of an elementary particle and linear momentum and create the whole geometry. So what I'm saying, information and spinning and vortex are very essential. Okay, are coupled with each other. So that's why the vortex that you see in metaphysics is so important. And also there's something here that I have here, it's very interesting. I want to demonstrate from this that the universe have a preferred direction of rotation. I did this here and also did this in Australia, which is opposite. And the result is the same. I don't know if it's smooth enough, but when I rotate this clockwise, it will continue until the friction stops it. Now if I rotate this counterclockwise, this then is too rough. Let's see if we work on it. It's unstable, develop a pitch, and then go back to a clockwise rotation automatically. Okay? Now, you take the reason I have the corn here, when I first did this, somebody in the audience said, hey, look, it's unsymmetric. Okay? So what I did, I put the corn in here and let the player to put the corn wherever he want to put it. So he could distribute the weight different. And the result is the same. Doesn't matter where you put the corn, how do you unbalance this object, it always rotates clockwise. When you try to rotate counterclockwise, it develops an instability, develops a pitch, and the pitch forces you to go back to rotate in clockwise direction. And this phenomenon is identical here and in Australia. So that has nothing to do with the Earth's rotation.
How does the sun rotating in the galaxy relate to the rotation of the planets? Is that they're the same direction?
Well, I don't know. I have never asked that question. Okay.
You need more information.
But there's a lot of galaxy. It's current a spiral.
Right.
It's a spiral. Okay. And there's another interesting thing. Let me show you another piece of information on the vortex. That explains why some of your instruments have a coil, a spiral coil in there. Okay? I'm getting to that. I'm trying to tie the physics to your instrumentation. Here's an instrument picture. I don't know anybody familiar with that or not. Anybody familiar with the picture in the bottom? Any metaphysical student? Huh? Basset. Yeah, Basset. Basset and Leber. This last figure is in occult chemistry. The text of occult chemistry is from Theosophy. The turn of the century, two very famous psychics, okay, have the job of trying to determine what is really inside an atom. Okay. So he used psychic power to see inside an atom to the most detailed refinement they could see it. And that's what they come out with, of the atom. Okay? Up here is a drawing, it is twisted from mathematics. Okay, Penrose work. I mean, look at the similarity. There's another similarity that the psychic saw all these in light rays, light, aspect of light, turning around, left and right turn. And all this line are light ray. Each line here is where the light travel, light path. That's its geometry. In other words, when you stay on the line there, you will see both past and future and present at the same time because it's a space-time path. And let me describe another set experiment in terms of spiral and rotation. Anybody know of Marcel Vogel's work? He's a hard man to talk to, but he has some interest in himself. I have the opportunity to look at all his lab work. Okay, And the lab was involved with structuring wine with crystal. Anybody familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what the process involved to take a crystal is cut. It's, by the way, it's cut in the form of the tree of Kabbalah. As a matter of fact, the tree of Kabbalah is pretty much the two triangles I show you. If you put it in 3 dimensions. So a crystal cut in the tree of Kabbalah, what he did on the wine experiment, which is not experiment anymore, because the wine yard working with us have been in business for the last 2 years, selling wine process, crystal processed wine.